Was Steve Erceg screwed over? Was Steve Erceg given the short end of the stick? Did he get robbed tonight? Or did Alexandre Pantoja actually pull it off? All right, I'm going to give my recap of this entire UFC 301 card. If you're interested in hearing a particular take of mine on any of these fights, check the timestamps in the description. I'm going to break every single one down. But it's time to get into the main event, the controversial main event. I had it 2-2 going into the 5th. I've rewatched the 5th round. I've tallied up every single strike. If you're going to look at the UFC's website, they're incorrect. You're wasting your time. They have it 15-13 in favor of Pantoja, which is absolute bullshit. Right? You can never trust the UFC stats. I've tallied them up. The 5th round is the swing round. It's 2-2 going into the 5th. The 3rd round, it ain't a fucking Steve Erceg round. It's a Pantoja round. All right, I've rewatched that too. One little cut is not the same thing as a knockdown. I'm tired of acting like cuts are the same shit as a fucking knockdown. They're not. But the 5th round was extremely close. Steve Erceg had 14 significant strikes. Pantoja had 11. Big difference from what the UFC stats will show you. But either way, people are acting like Pantoja didn't land strikes, which is BS. It was extremely close. Pantoja didn't just hug in the 5th. He landed strikes. He landed low kicks. He landed body shots. He landed hooks. He landed a couple of jabs. He landed a couple of ground and pound significant strikes. And he landed a bunch of pipsqueak strikes on the ground too, which don't really mean shit. But 14 strikes for Erceg, significant ones. 11 for Pantoja. Damn near 3 minutes of control time for Pantoja, but a cut for Steve Erceg. All right? You don't give someone the round because they cut their opponent when their opponent is out ahead on basically everything. But if you cut your opponent in a round and things are very close and you're the one that's even ahead on significant strikes, I actually think that that is something that should be weighed heavier than things being close. You're behind on significant strikes, but you're going to be given the round because you have control time. I think that Erceg, given that he had a little bit more significant strikes and he had visible damage in that round as well, honestly could have been the stronger argument to give the fight to. I think that there's a slightly stronger argument for Steve Erceg to win the fight than Pantoja, because Pantoja was still behind on significant strikes. Things were close though, but Erceg was clearly out ahead by a little bit, and he also landed a cut, and Pantoja just didn't do enough on the ground. The first minute of control time that he had is basically meaningless. He hardly did anything with it. And yes, he had control time, and that makes a difference, but all things have to be even for you to go to control time. And Erceg was out ahead a little bit. And I honestly think that if it wasn't for the cut, that maybe you should give the round to Pantoja, but the cut also plays into it. That cut only saves him because he's ahead a little bit and because Pantoja didn't do shit on the ground. But people are acting like the 5th round wasn't in any way, shape, or form close. It was extremely close. Pantoja landed 10 plus significant strikes. Erceg only landed 14, 15 max. And he got controlled for 3 minutes. I could see why the judges gave it to Pantoja. The control time, I know people don't like to say it. It shouldn't mean a lot. It racked up and Pantoja landed a couple of fucking pipsqueak shots. Pantoja landed a couple of pipsqueak shots at the end of it, which, 2 of them were significant. I agree. I think that you could give the round to Erceg. I think that you could give the fight to Erceg, but I don't think that this was like some brutal robbery. Like, it's even hard for me to determine who really won. And I'm not saying that because I picked Pantoja. I promise you guys, I'm trying not to be biased, but I feel like there are some people that are saying things like 4-1 Pantoja. I don't know why people are saying this is a robbery. I know why people are saying Erceg won, because he arguably did. He looked to be the better fighter in this fight. It's just that he made a couple of mistakes and Pantoja didn't make many. Erceg basically fucking threw away that 5th round by shooting the takedown. And I know, I'm not going to sit here and act like it was a clear Pantoja win. Or, the 5th round was clearly Pantoja's. How could you not see it? I'm not going to sit here and do that. But all I'm saying is, it is a damn shame that Erceg shot after a takedown. It was a shame that his corner was giving him this advice that, you're down, you have to go for a finish or whatever. Because I think he was trying to be like super aggressive rather than just keep it standing, pick his shots. If he had just kept that shit standing, he 100% would have won. If he had just fought the way that I've been saying that I could beat some of these Spartans, he could have won if he just stuck and moved. The fact that he went into that takedown and tried to get some control time, you're never going to win a scramble eggs battle in front of Alexandre Pantoja. The guy knows how to scramble. The guy knows how to find a way to smudge. Pantoja doesn't do shit with it. Okay, he's boring as fuck. I've been saying this. I said this after his last performance against Royval. He's one of the most boring grapplers or champions in the sport, and people were shitting on me because he's a flyweight champion. If you're a real hardcore fan, you're always going crazy for flyweights, no matter what they do in the cage. All right, if a flyweight's camping in half guard, you have to go nuts for it and have to admit it's high level and super entertaining. Pantoja is high level, but he's not entertaining when he's grappling. He's atrocious to watch. But either way, how should you have scored the fifth? I honestly think that the little bit of damage from the cut helped him a little bit, but that's only because things were close. All right, people giving Erceg the third round because of a cut? I'm fucking tired of people acting like cuts are the same thing as knockdowns. Round 3 was a Pantoja round. He beat up Erceg on the feet. He took him down multiple times. He was winning the round just because fucking Erceg lands a little elbow at the end of the round does not steal him the round. If you get punched 100 times in the face, but you land one elbow on your opponent and it slices them open, that doesn't give you the round. I'm tired of people acting like a fucking cut is the same thing as a knockdown. It's not. But when things are close, it makes a big difference. But ultimately, this was an amazing fight. I really enjoyed it. It was a great chess match, right? The clean striker in Steve Erceg, who was surprising us every now and then with his ability to get up, and the craftsman, Pantoja. Whenever they were in the clinch, he was busy. He was landing knees. He would shoot takedowns at the very right times. It was a great fight, but it was closer than a lot of people are giving it credit for. It was closer than a lot of people that are saying Pantoja won are giving it credit for, because some people have it Pantoja 4-1, which I think is ridiculous. But I also think it's ridiculous to say that the 5th round wasn't even fucking close. The significant strikes weren't even that far off. And Erceg did get controlled. He's lucky that he got a cut with an elbow, but he did. So that counts. That's visible damage. And I honestly think that if you were to choose the perfect winner, I think there's a good argument for Steve Erceg winning this one. Let's get on to some of these other fights, okay? Co-main event, Jose Aldo versus Jonathan Martinez. Jose Aldo dominated Jonathan Martinez, okay? Not dominated. Things were getting a little bit hairy at times in the 5th round, but crafty Jose Aldo, when things were getting hairy, rocks Martinez. Martinez is out on his feet. Aldo doesn't chase the finish. He sees Martinez recovering a little bit, takes him down. When he's not expecting it, Aldo even mixes in the takedowns, gets some control time at the end of the fight to edge it out. Clean sweep. I was really impressed with Jose Aldo, and the reason why I picked him to win this fight is because Aldo has some of the best leg kick defense in the UFC, and I said if he could just check the low kicks, if he could not get low kick TKO'd or just kick to shreds, if he could handle them, he's winning this fight. He's a better boxer. He's not getting taken down, and that was proven. Aldo did such a good job at checking the low kicks early on that Jonathan Martinez didn't even throw one for like 4 minutes of the second round. And this is the guy that basically only relies on that. But Aldo checked a lot of the kicks, had a bunch of kicks of his own. We saw Aldo actually throwing leg kicks again. He was throwing leg kicks. He was throwing body kicks. He was landing combinations. He was landing knees to the body. Beautiful boxing. A nice jab he was working too. Aldo just kind of shut him down. You know, it was like a Jan Blachowicz versus Izzy. If you could deal with the low kicks, you're the better boxer than this guy. It's a free win. Aldo basically had a nice, easy win against Jonathan Martinez. The King of Rio's back, and I think that this is going to move him up the GOAT list. I honestly do. I think that this win for Jose Aldo, beating a hungry contender in Jonathan Martinez, who is a surging contender, this is an amazing win for Aldo, which means that I think he moves up a little bit. And if he moves up, so does Max. If Max moves up, so does Volk. So not only did Max and Aldo move up, so did Volk. The Three Kings won tonight. And I know that people are going to say, dude, stop, man. What the heck, man? Last time I checked, people will say that Alex Pereira's resume looks amazing now that he has Strickland on there, and that's a really good win because Strickland's a former champ. When Pereira beat Strickland, no one could say Strickland was a former champ. He beat a former champ. It's just now that they say that because Strickland then went on to become a champion a year later. So how is it that Pereira's wins can age really well, and now a win over Strickland looks better than it did a year ago, because now Strickland has gone on to prove that he could become a champion. But Volkanovski's win in 2019 against Aldo, who was 5 years younger than the great one that showed up tonight, doesn't? Max's don't? Their wins can age well. So just because Aldo wins doesn't mean the other guys don't move up too. Khabib, though. I think Khabib needs to get out of the top 5. I honestly think that's what this did tonight. Max Holloway moves up. Aldo moves up. There's only one place for Khabib to go. I don't have him in my top 5 anymore. I think they both passed him up with tonight. Okay? And Volkanovski, that win over Aldo in 2019 is aging really well. I know people are going to roll their eyes and say, dude, make this about Aldo. It is. It's about Aldo. Aldo's amazing. He's literally one of the GOATs. And I'm happy that he won tonight. And I think that he should fight Corey Sandhagen. I know Cheeto called him out. Fuck that, dude. Are you out of your fucking mind? No one wants to see a rematch with you and Aldo. I want to see Aldo fight Corey Sandhagen. Or maybe just get a freebie, a free win, pillow-handed fool. Get another win so Volk can move up again. But either way, I'm really happy that Jose Aldo won. It was a feel-good moment. I'm happy that I picked him to win this fight too because, again, when I rewatched Jonathan Martinez fight, he doesn't have great boxing. Outside of his kicks, he's kind of mid. And we saw that in this fight. Outside of his kicks, he is mid. And Aldo shut him down with the kicks and had a free win outside of that. So Aldo looked good. Martinez, no shame in losing to Aldo. Aldo is one of the GOATs. Kind of crazy how these Brazilians, as they get into their late 30s, still have crazy speed. They are still explosive. I don't know what they're eating, what they're drinking, but out there in Brazil, these guys, even if they get into their late 30s, they hit a new stride. So Aldo, still looking really good. Still showing that he wasn't washed when he was losing in his early 30s to Max Holloway. Can you believe that? Aldo fans will say that he was washed back in the day. Such BS. But either way, Aldo looked good. His boxing, honestly, his defense too, looked to have improved a little bit. I mean, I saw Aldo's head movement. He was getting out of the way of close spinning back fists. And, you know, he kind of knew what Martinez was going to throw before he threw it. Incredible performance. Number one contenders fight for him, okay? I don't want to see him fight Cejudo. That's a guy coming off of 2 L's. I don't want to see him fight anyone on a losing streak. He should fight Sandhagen, and if he wins that, he should fight for a title, okay? Let's get on to the next one. Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith proves us wrong and beats Vitor Petrino, okay? I'm just going to say this. I'm really happy that Anthony got it done. I can hardly contain a smile right now. But the fact that we get to see Anthony Smith remain in the UFC, because he may have retired if he lost tonight. This is the type of L that would have crushed him a little bit. The fact that he won tonight means that he's going to stay in the UFC. He's going to get hyped. He's going to drink his own Kool-Aid, which is a good thing. Anthony Smith should be hyped off of this win. He was getting doubted. He proved a lot of us wrong, including myself. And I'm happy that he got the win because I like seeing him win. He gets to stick around. We get more Anthony Smith on the Believe You Me podcast. And we see Anthony Smith hype himself up in the future, as he should after a win like this, okay? But I'd like to see him talk about how we can beat Pereira. Pereira posted about Anthony Smith. They have a beef going. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if Pereira invites Anthony Smith to fight this summer just because he wants to, just because it's a fun matchup for him. But let's get to this matchup. Vitor Petrino fought like a fucking fool. And I think that's because Anthony Smith may have actually gotten into his head a little bit. If you guys were paying attention to the build-up to this fight, Anthony Smith was saying that Vitor's good, he's strong, he's powerful, he's got a good jab, he does a couple of good things all right. The typical Anthony Smith stuff. You know, he's strong, but we've all seen strong. But One of the things that Anthony was talking about was how Vitor Petrino looked like a bitch in the Tyson-Pedro fight, meaning he wasn't engaging in the pocket, and whenever Pedro would throw, he would kind of, skedaddle away out of the fire. He would scurry away like a mouse, basically. And Anthony Smith made this point multiple times, and I honestly think that Vitor Petrino may have caught wind of this, because what I saw, instead of the low kicks, instead of the body kicks, I said Vitor Petrino has great low kicks, he has great body kicks, he's very fast with his kicks. The dude didn't throw a single fucking kick. Instead, Vitor Petrino made a point to walk Anthony Smith down, which is no issue, that's okay, but just to swing big meaty hooks on him, to try to get in his face, to prove a point so that he could knock him out with a big clubbing shot. And in the process, Anthony Smith was the one landing kicks. Anthony Smith was the one sticking behind cleaner, long, rangier, straight shots. And Vitor Petrino even tried to prove a point in the grappling where he runs at Anthony Smith, he picks him up, he gets caught in a guillotine, and he goes for a big flashy slam, and he fucking taps. So not only did Vitor not throw kicks, not only did he, not stay reserved, he pushed forward trying to prove a point that he wasn't going to be a bitch like Anthony Smith was saying he was. And in the process, he made himself look like a fool, fought like an idiot, made mistakes, and basically threw himself into a submission. Even though high-level guillotines or guillotines in high-level MMA don't really happen a lot, you got to give Anthony Smith the credit because he was able to pull a guillotine off at a higher level, which is impressive, which means the guy's got a squeeze on him, okay? So Anthony Smith gets it done. Credit to him for his amazing submission game, but I'm honestly kind of pissed that Vitor Petrino fought like a fool. Like, where were the kicks? Where was the patience? I picked him because I said, Vitor Petrino, he's got a pretty good fight IQ and he's pretty reserved. He made mistakes. He went in there trying to take Anthony's head off to try to prove a point, to try to be a tough guy, and then went out there for a big flashy slam instead of trying to get out of the guillotine on the feet, but whatever. Either way, Vitor Petrino lost, Anthony Smith won, and I'm really happy about it. And I hope they give Anthony Smith a bump up in competition or a number one contenders fight because, as I said earlier, Alex Pereira wants to fight Anthony Smith. That's a matchup that he's asking for. He loves it. Anthony Smith loves it. Let's make that happen. If Yuri Prohaska doesn't get the next shot, because I think Magomed should get it, but Magomed's been saying that he wants to fight in Abu Dhabi, and you're not calling the shots. You don't get to do that. You're not the champ. If you're next in line for a title fight, you better be ready to fight this summer. You don't just get the fight in your backyard every single time. So he's the one messing it up for himself. I say give it to Yuri. And if Yuri's not going to get it, fuck it. Let's do an Anthony Smith title fight. Because I'd rather see that than Pereira move up to fight John Jones just so Jones can duck Aspinall. And it'd be a fun matchup for Anthony Smith to talk himself into it. And if he actually were to win, that would be even crazier. And I would actually go crazy and I would be hyped. I actually do like seeing Anthony Smith win, even though I clown him for being delusional at times. And just because he won does not mean that everything I said about him is just not true anymore. I never said he was delusional for thinking he's going to beat Petrino. I said he's delusional for saying, when I show up, I'm the best in the division and everyone knows it. And him getting a guillotine, okay, doesn't necessarily prove that that's correct, okay? Him saying that, he thinks he could destroy anyone in the division and everyone knows it, everyone knows it's true, is also delusional, all right? Just because he submitted Vitor Petrino, who fought like an absolute fool, does not necessarily mean that Anthony Smith hasn't said delusional stuff. I never said that he was delusional about thinking he could win this matchup. I picked against him. This was the only pick I got wrong on the card. Let's get on to the next one. Also, if Anthony doesn't fight Pereira, maybe he can fight Khalil Roundtree again or some shit like that. Or Jamal Hill. Maybe we could see Anthony Smith fight Jamal Hill or Blachowicz if you want to see his legs get chopped to shreds. If you want to see a Anthony Smith Christmas tree edition fight where he gets chopped down like a tree, then maybe you put him up against Jan Blachowicz. But I kind of want to see him versus Pereira just because the buildup would be great. But happy that Anthony Smith got the win. Okay, so let's get on to the next one. On to the next one, Michel Pereira versus Ihor Potieria. Demolition job. An absolute demolition job for Michel Pereira. I picked a demolition job. And it was about as perfect of a performance as you could possibly have. I think Michel Pereira is a top 10 most exciting fighter to watch on the planet right now. Across all of combat sports, doesn't matter who you are, at middleweight, this dude is a freak of nature. All right, I don't know what was going on with him at welterweight. He didn't have the same sort of power now that he feels healthier and he's not going through a weight cut. Maybe he's hitting his stride, but in this new weight class at middleweight, dude, this guy is an absolute freak of nature. Because he's been running through decent middleweights. Ihor Potieria wasn't like a decent middleweight. Ihor Potieria is a former light heavyweight, and that's why I said in the build-up to this that this is going to be a crazy divisional skill gap. Former welterweight versus failed light heavyweight. It's going to be insane how easy this is for him, and he proved it, okay? Knocks Ihor Potieria down with a jab, all right? Throws a 1-2. The 2 didn't land. It was a jab that knocks him on his ass. Does a backflip on him. They even considered giving him the no contest for this or disqualification, which is fucking bullshit. That would have pissed me off beyond belief. He does a backflip on this guy, which is not a high fight IQ move, but you just know he knew he was going to go out there and dominate this motherfucker. And so he did the backflip. I don't think he's going to do that on a Khamzat Chimaev if he drops him or, you know, any of these higher level fighters. But against Ihor Potieria, he knew he could do it. Ihor gets up and he puts him in a freaking guillotine choke. Just like Anthony Smith got his guillotine. 2 guillotines in the same night. Standing guillotine. Ihor Potieria taps and he gets slumped to the canvas and starts twitching on the ground. And this might be a stupid theory, okay? This might be a dumb theory and you guys might clown me for this, but I'm not saying Ihor did this. What do you guys think about this? When Bryce Mitchell got knocked out against Josh Emmett and he was twitching on the ground. Sometimes fighters have such embarrassing losses to where they get done so badly and they get violated so badly that I feel like they can play up how hurt they are to win over pity points for the crowd. And I'm not saying Ihor did that. I'm not saying Bryce Mitchell did that. Bryce Mitchell definitely didn't do that. That was a nasty KO that Emmett had on him. But I honestly think that sometimes fighters get done so badly. Like Ihor Potieria got done so badly tonight. He got freaking backflipped on. He got dropped and he got standing guillotined and put out. I think that sometimes they know that, holy fuck, like this is the worst sort of loss you could ever have. I'm going to act more hurt than I actually am to change the vibe from, holy shit, what a badass performance. You humiliated that guy too. Damn, I wonder if he's okay, to get the pity points. Maybe I'm not right on this. I don't think Ihor did that. I'm just saying it's possible. It's possible because Ihor, I don't know, the way he fell feels like he was actually there, but he made it seem, he went out on the ground. I don't know. Maybe he actually slumped out and he was out cold on the ground. Hey, this is not me saying that he was faking it. I'm just saying that's a theory that I have about some people that get finished. I feel like I've seen it a few times. I'm not saying it was Bryce Mitchell. I'm not saying it was Ihor. But I just thought of that in the moment. Either way, I think the UFC should have posted this entire finish on their Instagram. They fucked around and only posted the tap, the submission and the tap. You know, the usual thing that they do. They show the last second of the finish. But this is the type of performance that you need to post on your social media page on UFC Instagram to hype him up. Show the whole thing. It's perfect for casuals. It's like a 20-second fight. All right, there's a backflip, there's a knockdown, there's a standing guillotine. The guy slumps out cold as he gets submitted. A perfect fight to promote this guy, Michel Pereira, who should be promoted because this guy's just had his 3rd first-round finish in a row. I would love to see what the fight time is for his last 3 fights in a row because I think it's probably no more than 2 minutes. He finished Petrosky in like the first 15 seconds. Finishes Ihor Potieria in the first 30 seconds. I think the finish that he had over Michel was around a similar amount of time. Maybe it was a minute, but holy shit, this guy is a beast. And I think he basically beats all of the strikers in this division. The people that are going to give him issues are people that are super durable, like Anthony Hernandez, that are also going to grapple and put a pace on him. But outside of that, I don't know who stops this guy. I honestly don't. Either way, let's get on to the next fight. Caio Borralho knocks out Paul Craig I picked him by KO because Paul Craig is a former light heavyweight that's getting older. And I also didn't think Paul Craig was going to be able to dominate him on the ground just because after Paul Craig's last fight with Brendan Allen, I feel like he's lost all of his aura. He had a little bit of aura going into that because he had a great performance against Andre Muniz. And we were talking about the skill gaps from, one division to the next. And Craig kind of defied that by beating a middleweight grappler coming down from light heavyweight. But then he got embarrassed. He was getting dropped against Brendan Allen. Caio Borralho is a powerful, very physical grappler with fast twitchability on the feet. You just had to know that he was going to finish Paul Craig in this on the feet. But Craig was looking good at times. I don't think it's the most impressive performance for Borralho. I would have liked this to be a little bit quicker, a little bit cleaner. Craig was in there. Craig was kicking the shit out of him, landing really solid roundhouse kicks to the body over and over and over again, even frustrating Caio at times. And Caio was talking to him and yapping in the cage, and that wasn't the I'm dominating this guy talking. That was the, he's frustrating me a little bit, and I'm trying to hype myself up right now talking. I don't know. I just didn't think it was that clean of a performance. Like, he definitely won the first round. He negated a lot of the grappling exchanges, but, there were some close exchanges, and I feel like he was really rushing the finish at times. But either way, the finish came in the second round, landed a three-piece on Paul Craig, and slumped him out up against the cage. That's what he should have done to Paul Craig. It's just, it didn't really exceed my expectations, and it kind of fell short just a tiny bit because I thought it was a bit of an ugly-looking performance up until the finish. But either way, he gets the finish. He doesn't go to the ground and entertain the ground game of Paul Craig. He didn't take a risk with the Kraken and throw himself into a triangle, so he did what he needed to do. But I just think that maybe also because it got followed up with such a perfect performance, it kind of got overshadowed. But I'm not that much of a believer in Caio Borralho on the feet in front of the more well-rounded middleweights moving forward, just because, again, Paul Craig was lighting him up to the body. He was doing well. All right, he wasn't just a sit and duck as he should have been. I feel like Johnny Walker had a much easier fight with him, and I don't really like that a light heavyweight can have an easier fight with Paul Craig. Or Brendan Allen on the feet can be more dominant than Caio Borralho. Not that Allen's a bad striker, but I don't know, it was a little bit sloppy. But let's get on to the next one. Joanderson Brito versus Jack Shore. An abomination from the doctors. What is this, the Little League? Is this Pee-wee football? Like, what the fuck? You're stopping a fight because of a little cut, a little boo-boo on someone's leg? I thought this was a disgrace. You can't stop a UFC fight because someone has a cut on their shin. It's one thing if you have a cut in your face, and it's nasty, and it's, the worst cut you've ever seen, and it's gonna get worse. You have a cut on your shin? Let it go on. All right? People get cuts like that when they're deadlifting. This is not, as I said, Little League baseball, where some kid gets a little bit of a cut on their shin and they're going to sit out the rest of the game. Fuck that. This is the UFC, dude. What are we doing? All right? I've seen people fight with fucking, half their face falling off. I've seen Colby Covington fight with his jaw severed. And you're stopping this fight because Jack Shore has a cut on his leg? Another thing that I was unhappy about, even though Brito was winning the fight and I picked him to win, and he was winning, he was leg kicking the shit out of Jack Shore. He was pushing him up against the fence. Early on, he was jabbing him up against the fence and looking like the faster guy, the more powerful guy. As the fight progressed, he kind of resorted to just smudging him up against the fence and not looking for takedowns. That's it. And I honestly thought it was a really weak-looking performance from him. He looked good early. He looked explosive. Again, he was kicking the shit out of Jack Shore. He was buckling his legs every now and then, but like when he would clinch up against the fence, he wouldn't even shoot takedowns. I think he shot like 1 or 2 takedowns. Shore would get up to his feet. And then for like the last 3 minutes of the fight, outside of the every once in a while low kick, he was just pushing him up against the fence, not doing anything. Like, you have the power advantage. You have the speed advantage. You can even get the takedown when you try. You're kicking the shit out of this guy, and your way to win is by smudging him up against the fence. That was a disgrace as well. So I was not very impressed with Joanderson Brito. He was winning the fight. Jack Shore could have eventually changed the tide. All right, they didn't give him a chance. That was wrong. And even if Brito was going to go on to win that way, it wasn't going to look pretty. So I'm not impressed with Brito's way of winning. It was a shitty look. He's not someone I expected to be stinking it up like that, but he was. So a very disappointing performance from him. But let's get on to the next one. Orolbai versus Elvis Brenner. This could have gotten ugly, okay? But Orolbai gets a knockdown in the third round. The reason why I say it could have been ugly is because apparently they took a point away from which I didn't even see happen. I was just watching the fight in the third round. Orolbai is starting to lose the round. This is before he gets the knockdown at the end of it, which really secured him the round. The chat is telling me that a point has been deducted. I don't know what from. I don't know where. Maybe it was a potential nut shot or something, but the referee didn't even stop the fight to tell us that a point was deducted, but it just was out of nowhere. So I was a little bit worried that if Elvis Brenner had continued to stink it up, I say stink it up, he wasn't stinking it up, but if he had continued to get the better of Orolbai in the grappling, because they would have deducted a point, it would have been 2-1 for Orolbai, but 1 point being deducted, it could have been a draw or a win for Brenner. Thank goodness Orolbai gets a knockdown at the end of the third, basically winning himself the round, and he won the first, he won the second, he wins the fight, clean sweep, 29-28 because of the point deduction or whatever. But let's actually talk about this. Brenner got ragdolled and pieced up in the first 2 rounds, okay? Orolbai looked amazing. His grappling looked phenomenal. The pace that he was putting on Brenner was insane. But I really liked the way that he was imposing as well. I mean, I saw this guy backing up Brenner methodically with nice, crisp, long, rangy 1-2s. Great low kicks. He looked fast. He looked powerful. He was piecing up Brenner on the feet to get him to back him up against the fence. And then his takedown entries were perfect. A very high fight IQ game plan and way of fighting for Orolbai, okay? Very surgical, very methodical. And when he would get the takedown, he would basically dominate. He did really start to slow down at the end of the second round. And I was going to say, this is the real Habib up until that, okay? I think it's clear that Orolbai early on is a monster. He's a problem. It's going to be hard to stop him. He has a good chin, too. He's very fast with his hands. He's powerful. But that gas tank can really come crashing down. And it's a good thing that he dogged it out at the end and was still able to win that third round with the knockdown because he was losing the majority of that. But outside of the gas tank, it was a really good performance. Although, as I said about the gas tank, it is a little bit worrisome that he crashed that hard. As I said, you just have to pick the OG person. You have to pick the guy that has 10,000 years of experience under his belt. Orolbai. This guy was hunting mammoths. You think he's going to lose to a guy on a UFC card? No way. But I'm happy that he got it done. Let's get on to the next one. Joaquim Silva versus Drakkar Klose. There's nothing to talk about. Boring as hell. Drakkar Klose fights and Joaquim Silva fights are not going to be interesting. There's something about these guys that I just think their fight styles are shit. So, I got my pick right. I picked Drakkar Klose. Mauricio Ruffy. Let's talk about him. Insane performance. Now, yes, it's against Jamie Mullarkey, who's basically on his way out, and he's got no chin anymore, and he's a bit of a bum. He, basically gets bruised up so easily because he's so pale, and like any shot that lands on him will basically turn his entire face red, which is crazy. Not amazing for fighting. Unfortunately, it's like you get hit with one shot, it looks like you're basically rocking a cut. One of those cuts that Erceg landed on Pantoja, but poor Jamie Mullarkey got pieced the fuck up against Brazilian McGregor. Mauricio Ruffy really reminds me of Conor. I don't know what it is. He has like a very similar bone structure to McGregor in his face, like the way that his jaw looks and his cheeks look sunken in. He kind of reminds me of like a featherweight McGregor. And man, this dude's pull counter right hand was a thing of beauty. This guy's countering ability is a thing of beauty. Really good long rangy shots. Just let the fight come to him. The fight before this, I was really frustrated in watching. Bonfim versus Michel. I was critiquing Ismael Bonfim for rushing a finish in front of Vince Michel. He basically went out there slugging at Vince Michel, trying to get him out of there as soon as possible. And he ended up basically like having a slugfest with a 41-year-old, which just looks kind of shitty. Like, you should be able to dominate Vince Michel. I think that Bonfim's stock kind of fell after tonight, just because, again, like, you should be able to finish a 41-year-old. Ruffy fighting a guy that's also on the verge of retirement, and Jamie Mullarkey, kind of just let the moment come to him. Didn't chase after anything, didn't overextend, picked his shots, was patient, looking for counters. He's very wild if you watch this guy outside of the UFC. He has a lot of spinning attacks. Wasn't really going with a whole lot of those. Was very composed, stuck to the basics, and just looked for the pull counters. Eventually was able to rock Mullarkey with a nice counter shot, hit him with a flying knee, had a couple of follow-up shots, put him away on the ground in the first round. I picked a first round finish, and that's exactly what we saw. Really exciting fighter. Again, kind of reminds me of like a Brazilian version of Conor McGregor with the death face from the weight cut and the pole counters. So I really like that performance. Bonfim versus Michel, kind of a slugfest with Bonfim edging it out. But again, I just think that he was chasing after the finish too much, and it just ended up being a bit of an ugly scrap that was a little bit too competitive for my liking, and I think he should have been a lot more patient in that one, and it's not the best look. But either way, he gets the win. I picked him to win that one. Costa versus Borjas, I picked Costa, and Steve Erceg's win over Costa is aging well. Costa gets it done. Ground and pound TKO. I picked him to win this fight. I said that it could be a ground and pound TKO because Costa's got some really good ground and pound, and that's exactly what we saw. So he gets it done. I went 10-1 on the card. I did very well. Coin flip Tracy doesn't really exist anymore, all right, guys? So, we're going to have to start putting respect on my name. Although a lot of people got their picks right tonight, it wasn't the hardest card to predict. But at the end of the day, even on cards that are supposedly easy to predict, those can sometimes end up being the ones where people are going 6-5 or 7-5 or something like that. So with the fight game, with all the upsets that we get, with fighters, making mistakes and not fighting the way that they would normally fight, and Vicente Luque quitting, you never know when that type of thing is going to happen. When you get a great night of picks going and you're 10-1, you're allowed to celebrate. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to celebrate until the next pay-per-view. We got another main event right. I honestly think that listen, it's tough because it was a close one. It actually is tough because it was extremely close. Okay? I don't really know how to feel about it, man, because I got my pick right. It was very close. I could see why they gave it to Pantoja, but I feel like that little cut at the end of the round for Erceg, that visible damage plus things were close. Either the visible damage or the control time. Which one are you going to go with? I could see you going with visible damage when things are close rather than things are close, let's go with control time. Okay? Especially when you're the one that's up on significant strikes anyway. So I feel like Steve Erceg may have been the rightful winner. Okay? But I enjoyed the card. I thought it was really fun. Steve Erceg's looking like a future champ 100%. And Smith, I'm happy that he got the win. So good for Anthony Smith. I enjoyed the card. It was very fun. And even though it wasn't very stacked, I hope that I can get my next main event right for UFC 302 to keep this thing going. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think in the comments. Very controversial main event. Maybe Steve Erceg with that little slicey elbow when things were close should have been the rightful winner, but I could see why they gave it to Pantoja. Until next time.